Hey, everybody. Welcome into an all-new episode of the NFL's Day-to-Day Preview Show presented by Stats Perform. I am your host, as always, Mike Leon. It's Week 18, the final week of the regular season. It's upon us. Season surprises, MVP picks, game matchups, and more. We're going to break it all down, as always, with stats and insights courtesy of Stats Perform's amazing new tool called PressBox Live. You can head to statsperform.com today to see how NFL teams, broadcasters, communication staffs, and more are utilizing PressBox Live to help augment their game day coverage. I want to welcome in, as always, my two partners in crime here, digital journalists over at The Analyst, Nicholas McGee, and AI data analyst over at Stats Perform, and a contributor on The Analyst as well, Kyle Cunningham Rhodes, because we're going to switch this up a little bit here at the top of the show. Obviously, the NFL world has been rocked this past week with what happened to Bills safety DAMAR HAMLIN. If you don't know about what happened in the Monday Night Football game against the Bengals, HAMLIN, while making a tackle on T. Higgins, suffered cardiac arrest, had to be resuscitated on the field, and was taken to a local Cincinnati hospital. Since then, it's been a very good news week for DAMAR. As recently as of this taping, he was even able to communicate to the hospital staff asking who won the game between the Bills and the Bengals, which is really great to hear, if you can hear it in my voice. And for the people out there that are not only Bills fans, former Pitt football fans that all have DAMAR in their thoughts and prayers, continue with those thoughts and prayers as he continues on his road to recovery. I want to get you guys takeaways here at the top, because football becomes secondary, even in a show like this, when we're talking about something where someone could have physically lost their life. I kind of went through this with one of my pro sports teams. I'm a fan of Sevilla and La Liga for soccer, and Antonio Porta died from an on-field, no collision, just happened to have what he thought was dizzy spells, and it happened to be something heart-related, and he ended up passing away later on in the match. And I remember how that affected me as a fan of that team. The only correlation I can make to this scenario, thank God DAMAR is on the up and up so far, according to medical reports. But Nicholas, I'll start with you. You were watching the Monday night game. What were some of your thoughts and takeaways of not only the injury, but the subsequent everything that's happened so far?
Well, it was a completely surreal and it's very strange kind of incident to watch. Really, you don't really expect, you say, to see anything like that when you're getting wrapped up in the experience of what was meant to be a huge Monday night game, and all the focus is going to be on this battle for the AFC's top seed, and it becomes just so secondary straight away. As soon as you see the emotions on the players' faces, you see there's something extremely serious is going on, and that everything is secondary to that, where you tend to kind of get stuck in kind of this tribalism of sports, regardless if that's NFL or any of the major US sports or soccer over here in the UK. We tend to get wrapped up in this thing as fans and being very tribal about it. But what's been impressive to see since it happens, obviously the Bengals fans were incredible in the stadium, as were the Bills fans, being very quiet, being very respectful, and obviously staying there right until the end, until it became apparent the game was going to be postponed, and obviously immediately rallying around him. And the NFL world has followed suit with the amazing donations to his charity, and obviously it's fantastic to see that he is clearly making quite what the doctors called remarkable progress already. So a very sad, obviously very surreal incident that it seems like he's going to be on the mend, and it's put a lot of positives out of it. And you've seen the NFL work, which obviously can be quite committed to each other's teams, but when it can really rally together and do something very positive, like it has done for DAMAR's toy drive, and hopefully he comes back and is able to appear in some sort, whether it's on the field or just lead a normal life again.
Yeah, very well said, Nicholas, because especially with the charity stuff, if you don't know his GoFundMe page and the stuff that he did with a toy drive back in the Pittsburgh area, go check that out, donate to that. There was an injury a while back ago in the National Hockey League with Chris Pronger taking a puck to the chest and suffering something similar in terms of a cardiac arrest type of moment, and collapsed on the ice and had to be resuscitated and taken back. So there has been precedent for this before, but not in the NFL. KCR, what were some of your takeaways when you saw this injury happen to DAMAR, and then the game getting postponed, like Nicholas was mentioning? I mean, this was billed as game of the year, probably the best Monday Night Football game just in terms of team records overall. And then for this moment to happen, it made the game very secondary.
Yeah, I wasn't actually watching the game. I don't watch most games live. I like to watch them the next day. I was playing board games with my partner, and we kind of wrapped up, and I just checked the score to see what the score looked like, and it said delayed. And usually with the NFL, that's either lightning or injury. And of course, the first thought is like, okay, maybe like a head injury is kind of what you're thinking of for the NFL. Kind of caught up online. I was pretty confused at first, seeing what was being said. I think it's sort of always torn covering the game of football, because it's such a violent game, but it's such an awesome game too, right? Between the strategy and the physicality and the just pure athleticism, it's something that I think we always kind of grapple with inside, and to see something like that, it's odd that you're not really expecting to see something like that, despite sort of knowing all of those, knowing what the game is. Nicholas said it best, and we're happy that he seems to be doing a little bit better. The outpouring of support has been really nice. I'm glad after some initial confusion that the game was in fact postponed, and now it sort of sounds like it might be canceled. I think that really speaks to a little bit of growth with the NFL. I don't think that would have happened even a decade ago. Sort of acknowledging the human element of the game is something that we've really gotten to see evolve with the NFL in the last couple of years. Yeah, really hoping for the best. Kind of really sucks to see, but again, sort of happy to see some positive signs from the hospital.
Yeah. Well, we're going to get into, it's funny enough because both teams are playing in pivotal matchups this coming weekend. So we're going to get into the game breakdown for both of them and how this will affect them. I mean, again, I've never been through this on the sports side, but seeing a teammate collapse and having to, be resuscitated back to life has to have some type of effect. Again, watching, the team that I love on the soccer side go through this, it was a very emotional season, and trying to play your next match, which ended up getting canceled. They actually were supposed to be playing their crosstown rival Betis, and it just, the match got canceled. And it's very tough to get back from the emotions of playing that and continuing the season. So we'll get into the game breakdown of what the Bengals and Bills have this coming week, respectively, because they have pretty big games, and what the NFL is going to do with the game, whether it's a no contest or it's a tie in the column, is going to be pivotal because the 1 seed is still open in the AFC. Let's try to transition as best as we can to the gridiron and to some of the games and matchups. And let's start first, though, with our season analysis. As we get down here into the end of the 2022 regular season, get some surprise teams for 2022. I'll start with you first, KCR, because you were so high on this one team in the city of brotherly love. And I'm curious if you're going to pick them as your 2022 surprise, but it wasn't a surprise to you. So tell me, who is your 2022 team surprise? Again, it could be in the positive direction, great record, or it could be in the other direction, in the losing record.
Yeah, again, we were so high on the Eagles to start the year. The success that they had, I don't think is that big of a surprise to us. Just how good Jalen Hurts has been has certainly been a little bit of surprise. The other team that we were very high on was the defending Super Bowl champions, Los Angeles Rams. They've obviously had a really disappointing season. You can sort of look down their roster at the injuries that they've had, and that sort of kind of answers that question. I think the biggest surprise really has to be the Giants. I mean, really, the underlying data still does not think that they are kind of in that upper echelon of teams. And I think that after their super, super hot start, they kind of came back down to earth, showed that they weren't really ready to be in that top level, but making the playoffs in that division, even as a wild card team, having to play the Cowboys and the Eagles and still managing to get through, with a bunch of victories along the way against teams that are potentially playoff bound, coming down to the wire against Minnesota, beating Green Bay, in a game that it looked like they were just going to get blown the doors off. I think that has been with the roster that they have, specifically on the offensive side, the receiving core that they've had to use this year, in the absence of really, we look across the league at all of these top teams, and they've just got these stud receivers across the board, or at least some option, right? Maybe the Chiefs don't have a stud receiver, but they've got Travis Kelce, who is sort of fills that role for them. Darius Slayton, we think, is really great, but I'm not sure that he's quite on that level. Richie James and practice squad guy Isaiah Hodgins, go Beavs. He is what Daboll has done in year one for that team is really remarkable, and you can just tell that the team loves playing for him. Of all the teams, when I was looking through, I think that it was really between them and the Seahawks, and really just had to give the nod to the Giants.
Yeah, the Giants have had a really fun season this year and clinching their playoff bowl this past week. And Nicholas, for you, a surprise in either direction from the 2022 campaign. I think we know where we're going here with the Bay Area and the winning streak of your impressive 49ers. But why don't you tell our audience what's been your surprise for 2022?
Oh, you can read me too easily, Mike. We're spending too much time together. Yeah, I saw this question on our rundown and thought, here's a chance for me to go full homer. I don't think anybody's surprised that the Niners are good. It's one of the best rosters in football. I think the most surprising element of it is that they've done it after losing 2 quarterbacks, and they're now doing it with a 7th-round rookie who was the last pick in the draft, and that's been the most surprising aspect of the season. One of the stories of the season has been the emergence of Brock Purdy, who I think we've got, at least I haven't pulled the numbers right now, he is 4th in EVE, which is efficiency versus expected among quarterbacks of at least 100 plays and then expected passing situations this year, which is pretty remarkable for a guy who's only played 4 starts and won them all, and hasn't been really any drop off from Jimmy Garoppolo. He's above Garoppolo on that list in EVE in our metric, and just looks right at home immediately in the pro level. Adds an element to the offense in terms of what he can do with his second reaction plays, in terms of escaping the pocket. You saw that on Sunday in the game against the Raiders with the rollout to George Kittle and finding in the back of the end zone with a perfect throw. Has finally experienced some struggles in that game, coming from a surprise 10-point deficit and led what should have been a game-winning drive on overtime and just hitting Brandon Ayuk consistently, and probably go to make that kick. Doesn't even go to overtime. So he just showed the ability to come through some struggles and still showed the poise and the confidence and the fearlessness that he's going to need in the postseason if they're going to be successful. And it speaks to the value of situation, because we know that the situation is fantastic in San Francisco with both the offensive weapons and the defense, and the O-line has played pretty well this year. But also speaks to, I think we were too early to write off quarterbacks. I think that game last Sunday showed that. Brock Purdy, 7th-round pick, he's not going to do anything. Turns out he's pretty good fit for that offense. And then Jarrett Stidham, he's never started a game. He must be useless. No. Comes in and plays an exceptional game against the best defense in the league. And again, against the situation when you've got something like Devontae Adams. So I think he is a cautionary tale that we're too quick to write off quarterbacks sometimes. You have to be very, very talented to get to the NFL level. And if you have the right coach in the right situation, you can be successful.
Yeah.
Well, and one more there. I think it feels like it happened years ago, but remember that the Niners opened the years by losing to the Bears. So that was like right away we were thinking like, oh boy, like I don't know about this team, and then now we're looking at him as potentially still the number 1 seed in the entire conference.
Seriously, that's a very, very well said about the Bears loss. I remember that, and obviously the Bears finishing with 3 wins. Who knows what they do this upcoming weekend? But for me, everyone I think knows where I'm going to go. But first, before I even go there, I want to shout out a surprise: the Jacksonville Jaguars. The Jacksonville Jaguars so far, if you just look them up, folks, they are undefeated in the last month. They beat the Titans on the road. They beat the Cowboys at home in that game with the pick 6 against Dak. They beat the Jets. And again, the Jets were a playoff, at least contending team in that game in the Meadowlands, shutting them down 19-3. The Texans are not very good, but they did what they needed to do against the Texans and winning that game. And here they are about to win their first AFC South crown, potentially if they beat the Titans this coming weekend. The Jaguars and what Doug Peterson has been able to do in reining in Trevor Lawrence, and even with making a trade, they traded their running back during the middle of the season, and here they are about to win a division title potentially if they can pull this out on Saturday. Shout out to what they've been doing. But for me, real quick, the surprise of 2022, we mentioned it in the midseason review about how the AFC West was supposed to be this rumble and tumble, right? Well, a coach gets fired in the division. Russell Wilson regresses to Mike Leon form. I'm not very good as a passer. And the team that I love more than a lot of my family members has let me down once again. And the reason they've let me down is because it all starts at the top. Josh McDaniels has been somebody that has come from the Bill Belichick coaching tree. Whether or not he should have been hired for failing in a division, not having a winning record, but being this really good offensive coordinator that can speak to quarterbacks, we still don't know. Here's what I do know. Men lie, women lie, numbers don't. The Raiders are the first team in NFL history to blow 5 games after leading by 2 touchdowns or more after halftime. 5 games, folks, but they've blown that lead. The Raiders, in 2 separate instances, going into the fourth quarter, were up 10 points or more against 2 teams and lost. And against Baker Mayfield, a 98-yard drive, when Baker Mayfield signed Tuesday against the against the Raiders. He signed Tuesday. He's playing Thursday. We all know how hard it is to learn the language and concepts of an offense. He drives 98 yards to beat the Raiders in a Thursday night game on Amazon Prime after the Raiders had just gone on a 3-game winning streak. The Raiders this year wasted arguably the best NFL rushing season for any Raiders since Marcus Allen in Josh Jacobs. What he does next year and becomes a free agent, who knows? They wasted the best season by a Raider receiver since Tim Brown in Devontae Adams. Derek Carr regressed and led the NFL in interceptions after last year throwing for over 4,000 yards and leading the Raiders to the playoffs in a season where their starting wide receiver killed somebody due to a drunk driving incident, and their starting defensive back threatened to kill somebody over IG Live with weapons. That team went 10-7. This team is on a path to be 6-11 if they lose this coming Saturday against the Chiefs. I couldn't be more disappointed in the way this franchise last year was able to close out games. They were 7-2 in one-score games. And this year, obviously, I just gave you that stat of the leads that they have blown. I have not been impressed with what the Raiders have been able to do so far in instances, in key moments, when they need to get a stop, when they need to get a first down, when they need to, the perfect example in one of these games, Josh Jacobs, it's 2nd and 9. He gets 8 yards. The next play, 3rd and 1, they try to QB sneak. They don't get it. They punt. The other team comes down for a touchdown. Forget what game it was, but you can go back and look it up. They have let me down as always, only they can, folks, as only they can. And they have been my 2022 disappointment just because of what I've mentioned. Numbers don't lie, guys. 5 double-digit leads after halftime. Never been done in NFL history until the 2022 Las Vegas Raiders. Oh, thank you. Thank you for that present, guys. All right, let's get into our NFL MVP talk here, because obviously there has to be somebody who's leading these guys down the field and winning games at an alarming rate, or it could be a positional player that we're not even thinking of. Nicholas, I'll start with you. Who's your right now NFL MVP?
Yeah, this question got a bit more complicated with the Jalen Hurts injury. With the last 2 games which they've lost, which arguably, and by the definition of the award, speaks to his value, because Gardner Minshew was okay against Dallas in the first game without him. I thought personally he threw quite a lot of 50-50 balls, a lot of contested catches, and that's how Dallas won the game in the end, with a couple of interceptions, which in key moments. And then it could get nothing going against the Saints, and the Saints have a good defense. They don't have a defense that's of the previous vintages, so you would have thought they'd be able to do more than just the one explosive shot play down to AJ Brown in the 3rd quarter. That was the extent of their offense without Jalen Hurts. So by that measure, you would probably say Jalen Hurts maybe has a stronger case. But if you look at the numbers that Mr. Mahomes has in Kansas City for the 2nd time in his career, in going for 5,000 yards and 40 touchdown passes, a pretty select club. I can't remember off the top of my head who the fellow members of that club are. I believe there's a certain Breeze, and there might be Mr. Brady in that club as well, maybe another. But it's an extremely select club that he's in, and it's kind of lost in the shuffle, because I don't think that maybe Mahomes has played his best football. I think he can play better, which speaks to how good he is. But at a certain point, it's like you've just been saying in your opus on the Raiders, that the numbers they don't lie at a certain point, and when your primary contender at this point has missed a couple of key games down the stretch while you've still been playing, and ultimately leading to wins, albeit an unconvincing one against the Broncos this past weekend. It's tough. It becomes tough to argue that resume. If I was going to be a complete homer, I would mention Nick Bosa on the defensive side, but I think he's going to win Defensive Player of the Year regardless. But we're never to a point where a defensive player would get an MVP award. Otherwise, Aaron Donald will have several. So I think we're looking at Mahomes again.
Yeah. I think I'm with you on that because again, if we take Mahomes off the Chiefs, are they 13 and 3 right now? I don't know. KCR, who's your pick so far for NFL MVP? Looks like it's a three-legged race here. Potentially Joe Burrow jumps into that mix. Jalen Hurts, Patrick Mahomes. You got Josh Allen potentially. I mean, Justin Jefferson having an amazing year. Who's your pick?
Yeah, in the sort of previous renditions of this, I've kind of taken the opportunity to maybe highlight some other players other than Mahomes, but it's got to be Patrick Mahomes. I think he's how he leads that offense, especially after losing Tyreek Hill this year. We saw what Tyreek Hill can do for an offense in Miami. 390 passing plays this year Mahomes has had, and expecting passing situations. He's averaging 1.8, almost 1.9 extra yards per play over expected. Expected passing situations are about 50% of plays in an NFL game. So that's sort of 30, or I should say, percent of total plays. That's probably 30 passing plays per game. So he's getting an extra sort of 60 yards for his team. That's huge. The sort of mental effect of Patrick Mahomes, right, where we just feel a little bored sometimes with just how good he is, sort of year in and year out, and game in and game out. But if you leave him any time at all, and he's got the ball with 40 seconds left, and you're watching the game, there's really just no doubt in your mind that he's going to go down and score. And I think that the value that adds to a team, both from an actual on-field perspective and from a mental standpoint, when you're playing against them, I can't find anybody else in the league who really does more for their team than what Mahomes does.
I think we're all on the Mahomes train for NFL MVP until somebody knocks him off. He will probably get that trophy when it's all said and done. All right, let's shift into our game predictions here. We were talking about it at the beginning with what happened to Bills safety DAMAR HAMLIN. There's going to be a couple games where the Bills and Bengals are a part of these 4 games that we're looking at. First, let's get into a couple of games that are going to determine the division winners. This is one of them. You got the Titans heading to Jacksonville to take on the Jaguars. The Titans are looking to avoid joining the 1994 Eagles as the only teams in NFL history to have at least 7 wins before ending the season on a 7-game losing streak. That stat and insight presented courtesy of PressBox Live. Like I mentioned, the winner of this game will win the division. The Jaguars are hot right now, winning 5 in a row. We just mentioned how the Titans are looking. Josh Dobbs is going to be starting in this game on Saturday. KCR, I'll start with you. What can fans expect in this Titans-Jaguars matchup?
I think they can expect the Jaguars win. Josh Dobbs has been with the team for 2 weeks, and he's starting in a sort of make or break game. That sort of speaks to the state of the Tennessee Titans right now. Just looking at their roster and sort of what we expected to start the year, they're on IR are their projected starting left tackle, center, right guard, both starting linebackers, 2 starting cornerbacks, a starting safety. Their wide receiver core has been healthy, but that has been obviously a big, since losing AJ Brown, that's been a big area of concern. It's been a rough year, especially since they had a decent start to the year, but the injuries just piled up and piled up and piled up. They fired their general manager midway through the year. We're still sort of waiting on information. I think the community really has clarity on what happened there, if it's a power struggle or what. But it's hard for anybody to win when half of your projected starting roster is on IR to end the season, including your starting quarterback, who I didn't even mention, who missed a number of games this year. And really, the Jags have been playing, as you said already, they're on a big winning streak right now. Really, since that Lions game when the Lions just stomped them, they've been on fire. The offense has really taken off. We had a really good article on The Analyst about Trevor Lawrence and the improvements that he's made throughout the year. I just don't. It's hard for me to see, barring Derrick Henry just getting 35 carries and running it down the Jaguars' throats, which is a possibility. I'm not going to say that that's not going to happen. Unlikely to happen. I think the Jags are just a better built team right now. They're a healthier team right now. And I think that they'll get that last playoff spot.
Yeah, I agree with you. And let me give you some stats and insights here presented by PressBox Live, because it speaks to everything you were just saying. Jacksonville is looking to become the first NFL team in NFL history to make the playoffs immediately following back-to-back 14-loss seasons. They got to be going nuts up there in Duval country. If Derrick Henry, you were just talking about Derrick Henry, the Titans rusher, let's say he rushes the ball for at least 71 yards and 2 touchdowns against the Jags, he would become the first player in NFL history to have 3 seasons with at least 1,500 rushing yards and 15 touchdowns. He did this in 2019 and 2020. And with Josh Dobbs and now Henry back healthy, maybe that is the game plan to win in Jacksonville. Nicholas, what do you make? Both teams heading in polar directions. Are you with KCR as well, that this is probably a Jag win and a division title, or what are you expecting out of this matchup?
Yeah, I think you both nailed it, both from KCR and how this game's probably going to go, and yourself with the game plan for the Titans. It's tough to see a recipe that doesn't involve attempting to feed Derrick Henry. I mean, they have had some positive play out of Treylon Burks, but then he's been dealing with injuries, and I just looked it up, and he's added to the injury report from yesterday with a groin injury. So that's the Titans season in a nutshell. There is one of the best offensive players who started to develop the first round pick who they drafted to try and replace AJ Brown, is again dealing with an injury, which just speaks to what's been going on with them all season. If we're going to win this game, it probably will be on the back of Derrick Henry, and it'll be on the back of a defense that can still force some turnovers. You saw that against the Cowboys on the Thursday night game, stopping a Jaguars offense that's 7th in efficiency versus expected in our metrics. So one of the better offenses in the league at this point. But the previous matchup they had in Tennessee suggested that they're going to struggle to find a way to do that, particularly if Lawrence continues to show the improvements that he's shown this season. He's clearly blossoming at this point into the best quarterback from what's increasingly looking like an underwhelming 2021 draft class that was so fated before the draft. And there was obviously all that conversation, is Zach Wilson better than Trevor Lawrence? Should he be the number 1 pick? Well, I think we have a pretty emphatic answer, and I'm sure that Mr. Lawrence will probably add to the emphasis on that on Sunday with a good performance against the Titans.
Yeah. All right, so real quick, score-wise, I think we're all on the Jaguars here. I got the Jags 24-13 in this one. Nicholas, what do you got it at?
Yeah, I'll stick with you. I like that, 24-13. I was going to go kind of 24-10, but I think the extra field goal for the Titans, that sounds about right.
There we go. And KCR, what about you score-wise for this win?
Same score for the Jags, 24, a couple more points for the Titans. 24-16, our model gives the Jags about a 75% chance of winning.
Okay, perfect. There we go. All right, let's get into game 2, because this is what one of the teams that was affected in the Monday night scenario with DAMAR HAMLIN. And obviously we all know how T. Higgins has kind of taken this as well personally, because, obviously he was part of the tackle there that DAMAR was trying to make. The Bengals pretty shaken up in terms of seeing all the players and what happened Monday night on their sidelines. Shout out to their coaching staff as well, the Bill coaching staff, getting together and saying, we're not playing this game. Well, here we are now in a Sunday matchup where they take on the Ravens. And obviously they're leading the division here. Who knows what the NFL will do with respect to the matchup against the Bills and whether it becomes a no contest or a tie. We'll find out. But the Bengals have to regroup and get ready to welcome in the Ravens coming into town. Still unclear if Lamar Jackson is going to play in this game or not. Doesn't sound like he's going to. Nicholas, I'll start with you in this Ravens-Bengals AFC North matchup. What are you watching for in this game?
Yeah, you kind of keyed in on it. I mean, first and foremost, I think Zach Taylor will manage to get his team regrouped and ready for this one. I think both he and Sean McDermott deserve a great deal of credit for their leadership in that situation. Both came out extremely well. So I have faith in him to get him ready to play this game. And if Lamar Jackson is out, as it's looking trending like he might be doing, and who knows what happens there in the offseason. It's difficult to see where the Ravens can do some offense, because it just hasn't been there of late. I mean, obviously they played a good defense in Pittsburgh. It's one thing Pittsburgh had, particularly in this surge under Mike Tomlin, who appears set again to keep his 500 streak going. Again, if they win on Sunday, which is one of the more impressive streaks in the NFL. Yeah, this is just with a Huntley quarterback. It just didn't see, like last season, you had a bit of hope that he was that kind of high end backup that could lead them to relatively consistent offense. And this year, it just hasn't been there. Mark Andrews remains a primary weapon, and it's just I don't know where the juice is there anymore. Like Mark Andrews has one of the best tight end skill sets in the NFL, but it isn't happening. And signing receivers left and right, just absent any kind of juice in the passing game, and the run game isn't good enough without Lamar to hold them up. And this week they're facing a Bengals pass defense that is in the top 5 in the league by success rate. So I think unless they can kind of find some magic recipe from somewhere, I struggle to see how the Ravens can score the points to keep up with Burrow, presuming the Bengals are in the right frame of mind to play and win this game, which I think they will be.
Yeah, I think so too. But again, you never know how that affects a team. I wanted to key in with some stats and insights presented by PressBox Live on some of the players and the team defenses that you mentioned there. Mark Andrews hauled in all 9 of his targets for 100 receiving yards last week in that loss to the Steelers. It was his 10th career 100-yard game and his 3rd this season. Last year in week 16 at Cincinnati, he had 125 yards receiving, the 3rd most in his career. If he does it again, they're going to need all of that because the Ravens offense was kind of stagnant. Baltimore and Cincinnati here in this matchup, Baltimore this season has allowed 35 runs of at least 10 yards. All right. That's 2nd fewest in the league. Cincinnati has allowed 39, which is 6th fewest in the league. So both defenses have been playing really well, but the Baltimore offense hasn't been producing as much. If you watched that Steeler game last week, Steelers were able to pull that out in the 4th quarter. KCR, what are you looking forward to here in this matchup? Are we all on this? Bengals got more juice and more offense, and Ravens just can't put up anything without Lamar back there, or is there something that we're missing?
Yeah, I think it's really going to come down to how much the Baltimore defense can limit the Bengals. I think that's the big thing in this game. The Bengals throw the ball a lot. They have one of the highest pass percentages in neutral situations in the league. They're at about 57% in that situation. That's 3rd in the league over the whole season. The Ravens defense really specializes in stopping the run. It's not really a concern for the Bengals. So how the Bengals or how the Ravens go about stopping and slowing down the passing game is really going to be kind of what I'm looking for. But on the other side, the Ravens are going to need to put up some points if they have a chance to win. And I think that the good news for the Ravens is that their offensive line has been a really, really excellent run blocking unit this year. And I think that keeping Joe Burrow off the field, sort of a similar game plan to what we saw for the Saints against the Eagles last week, right? Where in the first half, I think the Eagles ran like a dozen offensive plays or something silly like that. Just keep the Bengals offense off the field. Even if you're just getting field goals, which you don't have to get very close for Justin Tucker to make kicks. That is how I think the Ravens can stay in this game. We talked about Mark Andrews. I still think he's been pretty good. They just haven't had the right quarterback in there to throw him the football. Tyler Huntley is not that great of a thrower. And in this game, the Bengals, sort of per our metrics, their best, the best sort of position of defense that they have relative to the offense is the tight end position. And I think it's really going to sort of rely on, I think if I told somebody, hey, the fate of the division is in the hands of Demarcus Robinson at wide receiver, I don't think many people would take that. Robinson has been pretty good. We actually like Robinson, but he's not, he's not that number 1 ball winner that you really, really want to throw the ball to 15 times in a game. But I do think that he will generate some yards. I think the Bengals will probably stack the box. They'll play that single high coverage, drop an extra guy down and help against the run. I think the Ravens try and run it as much as they possibly can with some shots to those wide receivers on the outside. A couple of years ago, we might have said, okay, we'll get Sammy Watkins deep, but I don't know if he's really got that juice anymore. Yes, Sammy Watkins is on the Ravens, if you didn't know that. I do think it's going to be a close game, right? These divisional matchups in the AFC North are always just totally smash mouth and real close. But it's going to be a real slog for the Ravens to put up some points.
Yeah, I think we're all on the Bengals front here. I'm big on the Bengals for this week. Again, given the turmoil and everything that happened this past week, but again, it speaks to John Harbaugh and how good of a coach he is that the Ravens have 10 wins and they look putrid on offense, given the former NFL MVP is on the sidelines there. The defense has been really good. I think it will bend, but eventually break due to how many times the Bengals will have the ball on the offensive side of the football. I like a 27-17 win for the Bengals. KCR, what do you like?
I've got a little closer. I've got a 23-20 victory for the Bengals. That's about a 59% chance of winning.
All right. And Nicholas, what about you?
Sorry, I was on mute there. I'm going to go low scoring. Don't trust the Ravens to score points anymore. 17-10 Cincinnati.
All right. Let's move into, again, another matchup of one of the teams affected in the Monday night game. The Bills headed back after that Monday night postponement, right back to Buffalo. And obviously now with the good news that has come out about DAMAR HAMLIN, and especially him asking the score of the game on Monday night, trying to find out if his team won. I hope that motivates the Bills a lot more. We'll see if it does as they get set to take on the Patriots. Patriots need this game. They win this game, and they will make the playoffs and be that final 7 seed. If not, we'll see what happens with the Dolphins game earlier in the day against the Jets. Actually, both teams are playing at the same time around 1 o'clock. So with that, Patriots, Bills, a big matchup here. Again, who knows the emotional state and the mental state of some of the Bills athletes. But I think the good news of what has come out recently with respect to DAMAR's health and the improvement he has had over the last couple of days will help bolster this team. We'll find out. Nicholas, I'll start with you. Pats Bills would be an interesting matchup. Unfortunately, due to the circumstances, we know what we have to lead with respect to this. But the Patriots, at one last week, and they're feeling a little bit more confident. They beat a Dolphins team that's kind of wounded and heading in a downward spiral. And they get poised to come into Buffalo and potentially hold down that last 7 seed. The Bills, if they had won last week, may have still been playing for the 1 seed here, it looks like. But now with respect to what happened to this game, doesn't look like the 1 seed will be in play for either the Bills or the Bengals if the NFL makes this a no contest or a tie. What are you looking forward to in this matchup?
Yeah, it's a really interesting one. I have a lot of faith at this point in the Patriots defense to kind of create those game-changing plays that can keep them in games. I'm going to sound a bit like a broken record. It's a story of the other side of the ball. The Patriots, whether it's going to be consistent enough, the Bills defense is one of the better ones in the league by yards per pass play allowed. It's a 6th in the NFL in that regard, allowing an average of 5.9 yards. So it's one of the better defenses in there. And the Patriots pass offense has been anything but consistent this season. They had their moments against the Dolphins. There was a particularly nice throw from Mac Jones on the, I think it was touchdown to Hunter Henry. It was a deep sail concept on 3rd down. Really nice throw. Showed what he can do when he gets the time and he's accurate down. He can be an accurate throw downfield. But that consistency just hasn't been there at all. And they have some decent weapons with Kendrick Bourne, and Tyquan Thornton started to come into the mix a little bit for New England. But it's tough to just, with the play calling situation that they've had this season, it just hasn't been there. I expect they'll run the ball pretty well. Ramondre Stevenson's been a good back from this year. Massive gaff against Las Vegas aside, between him and Jacoby Myers, obviously another good weapon there. They have the recipe to run the ball well, but at some point they're going to need to pass the ball. And despite a decent cast of receivers and some decent tight ends, I just don't see them doing that consistently enough to be able to keep up with a Buffalo team that I think, again, as with Cincinnati, will use this the right way, particularly now with the good news on demand. Obviously, his absence leaves a hole in that secondary, but I don't think that will be enough for the Patriots to be able to conjure enough offense to overcome what should be a Bills team heartened by the good news of the week.
It's funny because we just left the Ravens, who are struggling on offense and their defense has been carrying them, to now a similar situation with respect to the Patriots. Let me give you some stats and insights presented by PressBox Live. Bills have won their last 2 games against the Pats. They're looking for 3 straight wins in the series for the first time since 1999 and 2000. Both wins came by at least 10 points. Bills haven't won 3 straight by double digits over the Pats since 64-65 season. And then on the flip side, Bill Belichick has 36 career wins as a head coach against the Bills. The only coaches all time with more career wins against a single opponent are George Halas against the Packers and Lions, and Bill Belichick himself against a team he once took a job for that kind of left, the Jets. So that is an interesting stat, and I'm sure Jet fans are kicking themselves as to hearing that stat. But This matchup, KCR, like I said, with everything that happened this past week, it's very tough to gauge how these guys are going to come out and perform in this game. But the Patriots absolutely need this game. They cannot afford to lose this game. They will not make the playoffs if they don't. There is no backdoor scenario for them here. They win, they're in. The Bills are comfortably in. So what are you looking forward to in this matchup?
I think Nicholas calling the Patriots frustrating has got that, like, just speaks to my soul. We still, our team rating model is really heavily weighted towards player value, and it has a really tough time picking out the add or subtract of having coaches who are good at their jobs. And the thing about the Patriots is that they do have really good players. I mean, look at their offense. Say what you will about Mac Jones, he's a pretty good quarterback. He's not the next coming of Tom Brady, but he's a serviceable NFL quarterback. Their offensive line, Trent Brown, really good. Cole Strange, I think a lot of people had sort of raised their eyebrows at that draft pick. He's been quietly a really, really good left guard for them this year. They've got a great center, David Andrews. Right guard, Mike Onwenu, I think was probably should have been in consideration for a Pro Bowl spot. He's played really, really well. Right tackle has been an issue. Receiving core, I think Hunter Henry is a fantastic receiving option in the passing game. I wish that they would use him more as a split out tight end and less as a guy who just chips and runs to the flat. That has been the most frustrating part of watching this offense. Jacoby Myers, having him back, he's another really great wide receiver. He's mostly a slot guy, but he can win in man coverage. He's really excellent. They've got some speed guys on the outside. I like what I've seen from Thornton so far. They have the players, right, and the defense is just good. They've got more players on defense. They've got a lot of really good guys, and it's been so frustrating to watch how this offense has been constructed to not really take advantage of anything that Mac Jones does well. To not take advantage of all of this talent that they've got. The model looks at the players, and so it still thinks that the Patriots are a pretty good team and that this game will be close. But really, it just comes down to, can the coaching staff put together enough of an offensive game plan to keep up with the Bills in this game?
Well, with that said, what are we expecting forward to in this matchup score-wise? Who's winning this game? KCR, I'll turn to you. Pats, Bills. Who's winning the game? Are the Pats winning it? Are they getting in? Are the Bills winning it? Are they winning it for DAMAR? Who's winning this game?
I've got it a little bit closer than what I think the line out there is 7.5 or 8, something around that. I've got it as a 4-point Bills victory, 27-23. I think it's pretty close, but I think that sort of emotional victory is what we're looking at this week.
You know what? I'm with you. I'll go 24-21 Bills. Nicholas, wrap us up here. Who do you got winning this game on Sunday?
Yeah, I'm going to go with the Bills as well. A little bit of a wider margin, but close-ish. I'll keep it a one-possession game. I think it will be close, but the Bills will rally in the second half. Give me 27-20 to Buffalo.
All right, so we're all on Buffalo. We're all on the Bengals. We're all on the Jaguars. Let's see if we're all on the fourth matchup. And the most interesting matchup, the Sunday night game that got flexed in this week. You don't hear these words too often. Detroit Lions and playoffs. The Lions are sitting there at 8-8 after stomping the Bears last week. They have a scenario where they can make the playoffs if they win at Green Bay and Seattle loses earlier in the day. But the second hottest team in the NFL, the Green Bay Packers, are home. They win, and they are in. No need to watch what happens with the Seahawks. They've beaten their last 4 opponents, winning against the Vikings, dominating that game, going to Miami. Again, Miami in a downspin so far, winning that game on the road, and then obviously winning some games where they were favored against both the Rams and Bears, respectively. Aaron Rodgers has looked competent. His receiving core has looked competent over the past couple of weeks, but the defense has been really impressive in this Packers 4-game winning streak. Nicholas, I'll start with you. Packers-Lions, this is the game of the day, a very win and you're in scenario, especially if the Seahawks lose earlier in the day. They have a scenario where obviously they need the Packers, right? They need the Packers to lose, excuse me. And then they just win their game and they are in. What are you looking forward to in this matchup with Lions-Packers from Lambeau?
Yeah, I want to see whether this defensive resurgence from the Packers is sustainable, particularly, again, on the ground game, because the ground defense has been probably the Packers' Achilles heel for several playoff campaigns now, but they kept a decent lid on Dalvin Cook and Alexander Mattison. last week, and I really didn't expect them to. And obviously the Vikings, by the time the game started to get away from them, were forced to pass a little bit more, and then that just led to a cavalcade of Kirk Cousins misfires and turnovers that kind of put the game away. So yeah, really like keen to see whether this is like kind of a thing that's based a bit too based on fortune for the Packers in terms of the amount of turnovers they had last week, and whether they can actually contain a Lions defense that should be able to run the ball with DeAndre Swift and Jamal Williams, and has the firepower on offense to go into the play action game and hit DJ Chark and Amon-Ra St. Brown and Jameson Williams if they get more involved. And I've managed to integrate people like Titan Brock Wright, who I'd never heard of before his touchdown against the Jets a few weeks ago. So the Lions have been cooking me gas on offense for a while now. So they really have the potential to play kind of the berserker mode there, but they themselves have struggles on run defense. And you saw last week that Aaron Jones has showed why he's the best player on their offense with another dominant game there against the Vikings. So I think it's kind of a battle of which defense is going to step up. The Lions stepped up last week, but they were playing the Bears, and half of that was the Bears with Justin Fields injured. So it's tough to know whether you can trust that. And they had a good game against the Jets before that, but again that was against Zach Wilson, and we've all kind of are out on Zach Wilson at this point. So it's which of these kind of defenses who've played relatively well in recent weeks is kind of sustained on who can do it in the crunch.
Well, listen, you were talking about the Lions offense there. Let me give you a stat and insight presented by PressBox Live, because this is why I love working here. Sometimes you get some of these stats and insights where people are like, well, how'd you get that stat and insight? This is what our team does. This is what this fantastic tool does. The Lions have scored at least 20 points while throwing no interceptions in 8 straight games. That's tied for the longest streak in NFL history. Who would know that? The 2005 Broncos, the 2010 Patriots, and the 2018-19 Ravens both had similar streaks. So they've all tied it. If the Lions score Sunday and Goff doesn't throw an interception and they score 20 or more points, they will maintain the all-time NFL record for that. But on the flip side, I mentioned Aaron Rodgers, the gunslinger, right? Getting ready to win, and he's in. With a win on Sunday, Aaron Rodgers will be the first quarterback in NFL history to have 2 seasons where his team was multiple games under 500 immediately before going on a 5 or greater game win streak to end the regular season. What a stat. In 2016, the Packers were 4-6, and they won 6 straight to end the regular season. This year, they were 4-8, and they've won 4 straight with 1 final game to play. KCR, I say all of that. I take a deep breath because, boy, those are really good stats and insights. But now who wins this one? Lions, Packers, what are you expecting in this Sunday night matchup?
Yeah, I think in your intro, there was sort of a couple key words there, and that was Packers at home. I think that the fact that this game is at Lambeau, that it's outdoors, which is sort of a big thing for Goff. It's going to be outdoors at night too, so it should be even colder than if it's played during the day. Goff indoors this season, 24 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. Outdoors, just 5 touchdowns, only 1 interception. I don't put a whole ton of merit into touchdown stats like that, but he's definitely played significantly better at home than he has on the road. Yeah, I think the sort of resurgence of that Packers defense is something that is really what I'm going to be looking for. I think the Lions defense is still pretty bad. They had, they weren't the worst defense in the league over sort of the second half of the year, but they were still bottom 3. They had a couple games where they sort of seemed like, okay, did they turn the corner? But they're still not great. They've got a lot of holes that can be exploited, but they do generate some turnovers, and I think that that's what happened in the first game with these two teams, is that Rodgers threw a couple of red zone picks, which was just not something that we're used to saying. That collection of words. I think the Lions offense against the Packers defense is really what I'm looking forward to in this game. That Lions offensive line against the Packers run defense, who has really been gashed a lot this year. They did bottle up Dalvin Cook, but the Vikings run offense has been really atrocious, really over the second half of the year. Watching what that offensive line can do, moving the ball in the running game. I think I really trust the offensive staff of the Lions to put together a game plan to exploit the weaknesses of that Packers defense. The Packers, they play really, really excellent zone coverage, right? They're one of those teams like the Niners, like the Rams of last year, that just plays really, really steady zone defense. They do struggle in man coverage a little bit. I don't think they're really going to have to play anything other than what they're good at in this game. The Lions have quite a few weapons on the field, but they generate a lot of their yards through just good offensive scheme. They don't. Amon-Ra St. Brown is a really, really good slot receiver who's going to get you your 5 yards if you need 4. He's going to get you your 11 yards if you need 10, but he's not that sort of big play guy. They don't have that big ball winner downfield. They might have that in the future with Jameson Williams, but he's still sort of coming along slowly. We really like Khalif Raymond, but he's like 5'8". He wins a lot in man coverage, but again, he's not a guy that you can just huck the ball to down the field. They have lots of options, and really sort of heading into every Lions game, they're for the first time in maybe my life, they're one of the most exciting offenses to watch because they just have such a game specific game plan, and they just are really, really creative in getting guys open. And then they've got Amon-Ra St. Brown, who can just, like I said, sort of convert on third down. It'll be really interesting to watch that dynamic in this game.
Yeah. And it's so funny because they traded their pass catching tight end in the division to the team that's leading the division earlier this season when they were on a losing streak. By the way, St. Brown needs 7 more receptions to break the record for most receptions by a player in his first 2 seasons. The mark is at 196, and it's held by Michael Thomas of the Saints and Justin Jefferson of the Vikings currently. With that, prediction time for the final regular season game. A win and you're in for the Packers. Win and hope the Seahawks have lost earlier in the day for the Lions. KCR, what do you got in this game?
Ooh, I've got this one real close. Model has it at 22-21. I think it's going to be a lower scoring game than what the Lions are used to playing at home, and outdoors in Lambeau is just going to be tough to find some offense. But I think it's really going to come down to the wire, and I think just a little bit over 50% for the Packers in this game.
All right. I actually like a higher scoring game. I don't know why. Something about it. I can see the graphic. I see Goff driving down the field, getting picked off as the Lions lose, as they needed a touchdown. I got 30-24. We'll see if that holds up, and hold me to that when we do our playoff prediction episode. Nicholas, close us out here in the regular season. Lions, Packers, who's winning the game by how much?
Yeah, I've been on the fence of this one for a while, so I thought I'd really dial into what KCR was saying and see if I could find his way to convince me. And he did convince me, but in the opposite direction to what the model says. I'm going to pick the upset here. I'm going to back the Ben Johnson kind of masterclass that will get him a series of head coaches interviews and trust them to dial up an offensive game plan that works, and trust the likes of Aiden Hutchinson and James Hudson, who's the edge rusher, who's getting his due for an outstanding season, one of the steals of the draft, and trust him to make Rodgers uncomfortable getting off his spot. Obviously, Rodgers can do great work outside the pocket at his best, but get him uncomfortable to make enough mistakes to give the Lions an opportunity to win this game. So I'm going to go Lions 24-21.
Wow. All right. 2 Packers, 1 Lion, no Bears. Sorry, Bears fans. It's very interesting, the NFL season, the ups and downs, and then obviously what happened last week with DAMAR HAMLIN puts everything into perspective about these athletes and what they do to risk, it all and play for us and our entertainment on Saturdays and Sundays. Hopefully DAMAR continues his road to recovery. Hopefully you've enjoyed every episode that we've done here on the NFL Day-to-Day Show. Can't thank you enough for watching, listening, wherever you're tuning in. If you want to find out more about PressBox Live, the amazing tool where we present is a lot of the stats and insights from, head to statsperform.com today to check out that amazing tool. Check out all the great work over on theanalyst.com that our 2 folks here, Nicholas McGee and KCR, Kyle Cunningham Rose, both do there. Nicholas, a journalist over on The Analyst, and Kyle, a contributor and also an AI data analyst over at Stats Perform. I thank you to those 2 guys for being on the program as always. We will be back next week with our playoff prediction. We'll take a look at everything. We're going to tell you who's going to win the Super Bowl in 2023. Thank you for watching the NFL Day-to-Day Preview Show. For KCR, for Nicholas, I'm Mike Leon. Happy New Year, everybody, and we'll see you next week. Enjoy the games on Saturday and Sunday.